This program, it's ridiculously elegant. The smooth, silky paper, the text embossed in gold foil, it looks expensive, it feels important, and right in the center of the cover, my name, Chloe Miller. But as I flip through these cold pages, under the pale yellow light of the service hallway, I don't see my name. I see the name of a victim. I see the name of a tool. The name my father gave me, the name I worked day and night for 4 years of law school to honor, the name that was just called at my swearing-in ceremony for the New York State Bar, now, on page 4 of this program, has been turned into a fraud. The Chloe Miller Future Justice Fund. They thought I wouldn't know. They thought I would wait obediently outside, in my best dress, happy with whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. They thought I was the same old Cinderella, always grateful for an invitation to the ball, even if I never got to dance with the prince. They were wrong. And as I look up, watching my Aunt Victoria's silhouette through the crack in the door, raising a champagne flute and smiling at her business partners, I smile too. Because they don't know one thing. They don't know that by handing me the evidence of their own fraud, so beautifully printed and professionally presented, they just handed a weapon to a newly sworn-in attorney. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. To understand the fire in my eyes in that moment, to understand the deadly calm in my voice, we have to rewind exactly 1 hour. Back to the moment I stepped out of a yellow cab, my heart pounding in my chest, looking up at the skyscraper where the party in my honor was happening on the top floor. Have you ever been on the doorstep of the biggest victory of your life, able to feel it, to taste it, only to realize someone is silently pulling the rug out from under you? If the answer is yes, then this story is for you. This isn't just a failed family party. This is a confrontation that has been brewing for 20 years. It's the story of a blue-collar father who sacrificed his life so his daughter could reach her dream, and a high-society aunt who tried to turn that sacrifice into an accessory for her to wear at parties. Let's be honest. We all have an Aunt Victoria in our lives, in one form or another. It's the person who smiles at you while secretly looking down on you. The person who only shows up when you succeed to catch some of the reflected glory. And today, I'm going to show you step by step how to confront your own Aunt Victoria. Not with screaming or tears, but with intelligence, dignity, and with the very tools you worked so damn hard to earn. Hit that like button right now as a statement that we do not accept injustice. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because this is an emotional roller coaster you won't want to miss. Now, buckle up. We're heading back to the lobby of the summit, where my fragile hope for a family reconciliation is about to be shattered in the most brutal way imaginable. And with that fragile hope, I walked into the summit, completely unaware that I wasn't walking into a party, but a sophisticated, well-laid trap. The air inside was thick with the smell of money. Not the loud, showy kind, but the quiet hum of generational wealth. I could hear the gentle clinking of crystal glasses, the whispered conversations about stock markets and trips to St. Bart's. I had treated myself to a Tory Burch dress, found after weeks of sale hunting, an effort to look the part, to not embarrass them. The navy blue dress, simple but elegant, was my armor, my silent declaration that I belonged. A foolish but sincere hope. Just as I was trying to catch my breath and find a familiar face, Aunt Victoria glided over. She looked perfect, as if sculpted from marble and silk. A cream-colored Chanel suit, not a single blonde hair out of place, and a smile practiced for thousands of hours in front of a mirror. "Chloe, darling." She reached out for a perfunctory hug. A light touch on my shoulders rather than a real embrace. Her perfume, something expensive and distant, enveloped me. She pulled back, her cold blue eyes scanning me from head to toe. The dress, it's fine. Very professional. In Aunt Victoria's dictionary, professional was a subtle insult, a way of saying it lacked luxury, lacked class. I just smiled, a smile I had also practiced. "Thank you for putting all of this together, Aunt Victoria. It's incredible." "Oh, it's nothing, darling. That's what family is for." She said it, but her eyes were already scanning over my shoulder, likely searching for a more important guest. Then she turned back, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "Listen, things are a little hectic right now. Richard's important clients are arriving. and I want everything to be perfect before you make your official entrance. Could you do me a small favor?" "Of course," I replied, my gratitude overriding my judgment. "Wonderful. Could you just wait over by the service hallway for a moment?" she said, gesturing toward a narrow, poorly lit corridor near the kitchen area. "Just for a few minutes, so I can get everyone situated and avoid a bottleneck at the entrance. You understand, right?" I froze for a second. The service hallway? I glanced toward it, then back at the elegant guests being warmly welcomed in the main foyer. Her explanation sounded plausible on the surface, but the feeling it gave me was the exact opposite. It was as cold as the marble floor beneath my feet. But I nodded. I mumbled, "Yes, I understand." And I walked toward that hallway, feeling as though every eye was on me, even though no one was actually paying attention. The service hallway was another world. Cold fluorescent lights replaced the warm crystal chandeliers. The air here smelled of industrial cleaner and reheated food, not perfume and wealth. There were no chairs, just a blank wall and a stainless steel kitchen door that occasionally swung open, revealing the sounds of stressed-out shouting from within. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I started to reassure myself. Maybe this was part of a real surprise party. Maybe they were setting up something big. It was a lie, I told myself. A desperate attempt to protect my last shred of hope. I thought about my dad. He would never have let me stand in a corner like this. Even if our parties only had a few sodas and a pizza, he would have always put me at the center, with the highest honor. His calloused hand would have patted my back with pride. His smile would have been the brightest light in the room. 20 minutes. The chill of humiliation began to seep through the fabric of my designer dress. I felt so stupid. Stupid for hoping. Stupid for believing that a law degree could erase 20 years of being treated as less than. And that's when I heard a familiar voice, sharp and full of authority. "Chloe, what on earth are you doing back here?" I turned. Professor Anya Sharma, my mentor, the woman who had written my best letter of recommendation, was standing at the end of the hall, looking at me with a quizzical, furrowed brow. She was wearing a jade green silk sari, looking vibrant and powerful against the blandness of the corridor. "Professor Sharma? What are you doing here?" I stammered, embarrassed to be found in this situation. "Your aunt invited me," she replied, her sharp eyes taking in the scene. "A very formal invitation. She said she wanted me here to see her family honor one of my best students. But it seems this honoring is happening in a rather strange place. A place that doesn't even have chairs." Her bluntness was a breath of fresh air. She didn't pretend. She didn't try to smooth over the situation. She called it exactly what it was: strange. "My aunt said she needed to prepare a few things," I explained, and as the words came out, I heard the weakness in my own voice. Professor Sharma crossed her arms, a gesture I knew well from our classroom debates. It was the gesture that signaled she wasn't buying a weak argument. "Prepare? Chloe, I've been in there for 15 minutes. People are drinking champagne and eating oysters. The party isn't being prepared. It is happening." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Tell me, what exactly did your aunt say?" Under Professor Sharma's unflinching gaze, I felt my weak excuses dissolve. I took a breath, and the truth, however embarrassing, finally came out. My voice sounded so small in the bustling hallway. She said she needed to situate the important guests and didn't want a bottleneck at the entrance. She said I just had to wait a few minutes until she was ready for my big entrance. The moment the words left my mouth, I realized how ridiculous they were. A big entrance? I was a newly sworn-in attorney, not a piece of jewelry to be unveiled at the proper moment. Professor Sharma didn't laugh, nor did she offer pity. She just nodded slowly, as if I had just confirmed a hypothesis she had already formed in her mind. "Chloe," she said, her voice deep and clear, cutting through the chaos in my mind. "In the law, we learn to distinguish between the act and the intent. The act here is them leaving you out here, but we must analyze the intent. This isn't disorganization. This is a message, a carefully calculated message. They are demonstrating your place in their hierarchy. They want you to feel grateful to be allowed in, not like you have a right to be there. They are devaluing your achievement before you even have a chance to celebrate it." Every word she spoke was like a hammer blow, shattering my last illusions. She was using the very language I had learned, the language of logic and analysis, to expose the raw emotional manipulation. I no longer felt sad or ashamed. Instead, a cold indignation began to smolder. Just then, a figure slipped through the service door, almost at a run. It was Blake, my cousin. He looked different. His usually tan and smug face was now pale, his forehead dotted with sweat. He looked at me, then at Professor Sharma, and swallowed hard. "Chloe, I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice urgent. "I can't let this happen. I told my mom it was so wrong, but she wouldn't listen." "What is it, Blake?" I asked, my indignation now mixed with a vague sense of dread. Instead of answering, he pressed something into my hand. It was the event program I had seen in the hands of the other guests. It felt heavy and glossy. "Read it," he said. "Read page 4. I have to go before my mom realizes I'm gone." And then, as quickly as he appeared, Blake vanished back through the door, leaving Professor Sharma and me in the silence of the hallway. I looked down at the program. The front cover was a professional photo of me, taken for the law school yearbook, with the words, "Congratulations, Chloe Miller Esker." My heart ached a little. It looked so beautiful. It looked so real. I turned to page 4, as Blake had told me, and that's when my world fractured, not with a loud bang, but with a deadly silence. The page was formally designed, with the title, "The Future of Justice." Below, it was a flowery paragraph about the importance of the law and supporting the next generation of attorneys. And then I saw it. A smaller picture of my father, David Miller, smiling, placed next to my own. The fact that they dared to use his image, the image of a man they had looked down on his entire life, was bad enough. But the text below it was the final knife twist. It read, "To honor Chloe's achievement and the legacy of her esteemed late father, the Covington family is proud to announce the formation of the Chloe Miller Future Justice Fund. We invite you to join us in investing in the future of young legal talent." And at the very bottom were the details for wiring money to an account owned by Covington Enterprises. The humiliation I'd felt before was nothing compared to this. This was desecration. They weren't just stealing my success, they were weaponizing it. They were using my name and my father's memory to grift their friends. The sadness vanished, the shame evaporated. All that was left was a cold, burning clarity. Everything became clear. I looked up at Professor Sharma. She had seen the expression on my face, and she just nodded with understanding, as if she knew exactly what I had just read. "Well, Chloe," she said, a wry but encouraging smile on her lips. "It seems your first case as a licensed attorney has just found you." She was right. This was no longer a family squabble. This was active fraud. This was the illegal use of my name and likeness for financial gain. And I, Chloe Miller, was not just the victim. I was the counsel for the case. I folded the program, the sound of the thick paper snapping sharply in the hall. I smoothed down my dress, not to look better, but like a warrior checking her armor before battle. I looked Professor Sharma straight in the eye. "You're right," I said, and my voice no longer had a trace of a tremor. It was steady, it was steel. And my client, who happens to be me, will not be settling this quietly. I take a deep breath, the cold air of the service hallway seeming to steady my lungs. I was no longer the student trying to please her family. I was now an officer of the court, and before me was a clear injustice that needed to be corrected. "Let's go," Professor Sharma said quietly, but her voice was filled with resolve. "But remember, Chloe, stay calm. Use the truth as your weapon and logic as your shield. Don't let her drag you down into the emotional mud." I nod. Together, we step out of the shadows of the service hall and into the brilliant light of the party. Our appearance, 2 women emerging from a non-guest area, immediately draws attention. The nearest conversation dies. A few heads turn. Like a ripple, the silence begins to spread across the room. People shift, creating a natural pathway for us, like the parting of the Red Sea. All eyes fall on us, then move to the person standing on the makeshift stage. Aunt Victoria, she is mid-sentence, a champagne flute in hand, her face glowing with false pride. And that is why our family has always believed that investment in education, our unending support, was the foundation for Chloe's success today. We are so incredibly... Her voice trails off as she realizes I am walking directly toward her, with Professor Sharma at my side. A flicker of annoyance crosses her face. quickly masked by a strained smile. "Ah, Chloe, darling. There you are at last. We were just talking about you." She tries to make my appearance part of her plan. I stop a few feet from her, close enough for everyone nearby to hear clearly. I offer a polite smile, the kind of polite smile I'd seen opposing counsel use in the courtroom. It was civil, but it held no warmth. "Aunt Victoria, my apologies for the interruption," I say, my voice clear and steady in the room's sudden silence. I hold up the event program, open to page 4. I just wanted to say that this Future Justice Fund initiative is wonderful, a very ambitious idea. The tension in her face relaxes slightly. She thinks I'm praising her. "Oh, thank you, Chloe. I knew you'd love it." "I do," I continue, so much so that I have a few quick legal questions as a new member of the New York State Bar. The atmosphere changes instantly. I can feel the shift. The guests are no longer just curious, they are listening intently. I notice a man I know to be a senior partner at a prestigious law firm raise an eyebrow. I press on, my voice even. "First, I was wondering if you've registered the fund under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code to ensure that all donations are legally tax deductible." The color drains from Aunt Victoria's face. "Well, those are technical details. I don't let her finish. "Second question," I say, taking a step forward. "I was wondering under which New York statute you are soliciting donations using my name and professional credentials without any written agreement or permission from me. Because as I understand it, that could constitute the unauthorized use of identity for financial gain." A murmur ripples through the room. Uncle Richard, standing beside her, looks like he's about to faint. I catch a glimpse of Blake in the corner, staring at the floor. A mixture of shame and relief on his face. "How dare you!" Aunt Victoria hisses, her polite mask beginning to crack. "This is your party. How dare you embarrass your family like this?" "You're mistaken," I counter, my voice now ice cold. "This is your party, an illegal fundraising event disguised as my celebration. And you aren't just embarrassing the family. You are disgracing my father's memory." I turn the program toward the audience, pointing to my father's picture. This man, David Miller, worked himself to the bone on construction sites to pay for every one of my law books. His hands were calloused from labor, not from holding champagne flutes. His legacy is one of honesty and hard work. So perhaps you can clarify for me, and for everyone here, how that legacy is being used to solicit money that is being funneled into an account for Covington Enterprises. The silence is now leaden. No one dares to breathe. Aunt Victoria's mouth hangs open, speechless. Her performance is over. The curtain has been torn away, and everyone sees the naked falsehood behind it. I place the program on a nearby table with finality. I refuse to allow my name, and more importantly, my father's memory, to be used for this purpose. Then I turn, and without a second glance, I walk away. Professor Sharma places a hand on my back, a quiet gesture of support. We walk together, and I can hear the chaos erupting behind me, the whispers turning to chatter, Uncle Richard's desperate voice calling Victoria's name, and the sound of a party collapsing under the weight of the truth. As we step through the grand doors of the summit and into the fresh New York night, for the first time in years, I feel completely free. I wasn't just leaving a party. I was leaving a prison of expectation and deceit that had held me captive my entire life. As we step through the grand doors of the summit and into the fresh New York night, for the first time in years, I feel completely free. I wasn't just leaving a party. I was leaving a prison of expectation and deceit that had held me captive my entire life. The silence between Professor Sharma and me as we walk along the glittering Manhattan sidewalk isn't awkward. It is a silence of complete understanding. Adrenaline is still coursing through my veins, but underneath it, a profound exhaustion begins to spread. "You did very well, Chloe," Professor Sharma finally says, her voice warm. "You used your knowledge not to attack, but to expose the truth. That is the difference between a lawyer and a bully. Tonight, you proved you are a true lawyer. I couldn't have done it without you," I say honestly. "You showed me I wasn't crazy for feeling like something was wrong." She smiles. "My role was only to shine a flashlight. You were the one who walked the path." We hail a cab, and I give the driver the address of the pizza place in Brooklyn, where Maya and the others are waiting. As the car glides over the Brooklyn Bridge, the city lights stretch out behind us like a man-made constellation. I had left a fire burning behind me, but for the first time, I felt like I was heading toward a real light. When we arrive at the pizza place, the contrast couldn't be starker. Instead of distant orchestral music, the place is filled with boisterous laughter, classic rock from the jukebox, and the rich smell of garlic and melting cheese. Maya sees me from the bar and shouts, running over to wrap me in a huge hug. We were so worried. What happened? And so, over slices of hot pizza and cold beer, I tell them the whole story. My study group, the people who had pulled all-nighters with me before exams, listen with a mixture of awe and vicarious outrage. When I get to the part where I question Aunt Victoria with legal statutes, the whole group cheers as if their favorite sports team just scored. And then, my phone begins to buzz nonstop. First, a text from Blake. You did the impossible. My dad and I left right after. More than half the guests walked out too. Mom is losing it. I'm so sorry for everything. You're seriously the coolest person I know. A small smile touches my lips. Then, a series of missed calls from Uncle Richard. I decide to listen to the voicemail. His voice is trembling and full of regret. Chloe, it's Richard. I don't know what to say. What happened tonight was unforgivable. Patricia went too far, and I was too much of a coward to let it happen for so many years. I've left the party. Blake and I are outside. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Your father, he would have been so proud of your courage tonight. I am too. Tears begin to well up in my eyes, but this time they aren't tears of hurt, but of something more complex. A sense of relief, the beginning of a healing. But the biggest surprise comes a few weeks later. I receive an email from the president's office of the community college in Queens, where my father once took night classes in electrical engineering. The email announces the formation of a new scholarship fund. They are inviting me to the announcement ceremony. The scholarship is called the David Miller Memorial Scholarship, funded entirely by a large personal donation from Mr. Richard and Blake Covington. The scholarship will provide annual support for students from difficult circumstances who work while studying, just like my father once did. They had righted Aunt Victoria's wrong in the most meaningful way possible. They didn't just apologize. They took action. They used their resources to create a real legacy, one of generosity and opportunity, to honor the man they had once looked down on. It was a full circle moment. That night, in my small apartment, I take out my newly framed law degree. I place it on my desk, right next to an old photograph of my father. In the picture, he's in his construction work clothes, smiling brightly, his hands still dusted with mortar. I had thought getting this degree was the finish line, but I was wrong. The degree is just the tool. The real finish line is learning how to use it. Life had taught me a lesson more valuable than any law book. Family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes, it's the one you find, the people you choose to walk with. Family are the people who show up with a pizza box when you're broken, not the ones who make you wait in the service hall at your own celebration. And the biggest lesson, the one my father, through his life of quiet labor, had always taught me. Your worth is not determined by the approval of others. It is built from your own integrity, from your ability to stand up for the truth, and from the courage to leave the tables that were not set for you, so you can go and build your own, a table that is stronger, warmer, and far more worthy. And that table, ladies and gentlemen, always has enough room for all of us.